Resuming debate, and I just want to remind them, just advise the member that I'm going to have to interrupt at some point. The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as always, it is an honour to be able to rise and debate the issues that are so important to my constituents and Canadians from coast to coast. And Madam Speaker, just to inform you, I will be splitting my time. Madam Speaker, we're debating here Bill C-57. And this bill is the implementation of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement. Now, it is a behemoth of a bill, more than 600 pages, which the reason I bring up is because I want to provide a little bit of context here and what the Liberals' track record is on whenever they stand in this place and say we have to pass something without delay, without debate, and anything that even resembles us doing our jobs in this place would be considered obstructionist. Now, Madam Speaker, those are things that those members from the Liberals specifically, they level often against members of His Majesty's loyal opposition. Yet it is our duty and our job to make sure that we comprehensively debate and discuss the issues that come before this place. And this is absolutely true and is indeed the case when it comes to a 600 or so page bill that has such far-reaching implications, not only for us and our national economy, but specifically when it has such significant impacts on one of our allies, and to emphasize how important this is for the economic success of a country right now, Ukraine, Madam Speaker, that is facing something that certainly most Canadians that have grown up in Canada at the very least have not faced, and that is conflict at home. And I know that although Canada does have, I believe it's about 1.3, 1.4 million Canadians of Ukrainian descent, Madam Speaker, the fact that Ukraine right now is broiled in a conflict where Russia illegally invading the Ukraine's sovereignty, we have to get this right. And Madam Speaker, the reason why I provide this context is because so often, over the last 4 years that I've had the honour of sitting in this place, we see the Liberals quick to point to anything that would question any part of anything they do. And that's pretty broad speaking, but I think it rings very, very true, and I'm sure my colleagues here would agree with this, that when we try to do our jobs, they claim that it's simply obstruction. Yet, when I remember in this place, shortly after I was elected, having to deal with the updated NAFTA agreement, the CUSMA. And it was that government that instead of releasing comprehensive numbers about the impact of the new trade agreement and some of the factors that would be in place, they came with great gusto to a press conference and said, look, you either don't have the CUSMA passed and there's economic devastation, or you do and we're okay. They didn't outline the myriad of details that were included in what is an incredibly complex thing, and that is international trade negotiations. Because when it comes to trade, Madam Speaker, it is the Conservative Party that has such a tremendous track record. In fact, it is the framework and the agreement that this trade agreement is replacing, or being built upon, I think is a better way to put it, is one that was started by the previous Conservative government under then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. The international leadership that he showed and in building free and fair trade with nations that we see around the world. And in fact, Madam Speaker, it's been numerous times, whether it was CETA, when it was the Liberals that almost dropped the ball. When the Liberals almost saw an agreement that was virtually all that had to be done was the papers had to be signed. Yet it was the Liberals that almost dropped the ball, which would have wrought economic devastation. And then we see more recently with the Canada-UK Free Trade Agreement, where the Liberals claim victory. Yet it seems like they forgot to attend the briefings and certainly didn't speak to many stakeholders, where there were concerns that should have been addressed in the process of trade negotiations that were not. Now, Madam Speaker, it is a shame because it is during the negotiations process, during the process process to which the details are being worked out. Those 600 pages are being written. When there's a back and forth, a give and take, where trade negotiations, and I would just note, when I listen to my colleague from Abbotsford, he's probably forgotten more about free trade than most Liberals will ever know. Absolutely. And the dozens and dozens and dozens, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but dozens and dozens and dozens of countries where Canada has a positive, free and fair trading relationship with because of his work and the work of the previous Conservative government. So we stand here, Madam, 43. It is so impressive that is the legacy of Canada's Conservatives. Madam Speaker, we have before us a bill that addresses a host of things, but I would just highlight a couple of concerns that have been highlighted to me. One is when it has to do with some of Canada's protected sectors, including chicken. And I know over the course of the conflict in Ukraine, we need to make sure that the concerns of our domestic industries are being noted. And certainly it's unclear to me that these concerns have been addressed. Madam Speaker, when it comes to some of the other concerns that could be of great benefit to both countries, like making sure that our defense infrastructure is able to be brought in alignment and to ensure that we can support the Ukraine with the needed weapons and materials that they have to have in order to repel the illegal Russian invasion. And Madam Speaker, when it comes to things like ensuring that there are tools that are required for Ukrainian producers, farmers specifically. I think, I often refer to the breadbasket of North America, which is certainly part of the area that I represent, but many in this place will have learned in their high school textbooks about the breadbasket of Europe, and that is Ukraine, and the rich legacy that they have there of being able to produce high-quality agricultural goods, much of which has been put at risk because of Russia's illegal invasion. But, Madam Speaker, we need to ensure that when we are negotiating free trade deals, including when it's with one of our allies that is facing the circumstances like the Ukraine is today, that we are doing everything we can to ensure that we get it right. And Madam Speaker, specifically, when it comes to one segment here that is so important, it cannot be emphasized enough, and that is the role that energy plays. Now, Madam Speaker, let me make something so very clear. Canadian energy and the role that it plays is, when prioritized, when promoted, and when given the opportunity to displace dictator crude and despot gas, the world is safer. Now, Madam Speaker, the unfortunate legacy of the last 8 years under this costly Prime Minister and his coalition partners is the fact that Canada has been restricted from being able to be the peacemaker that we should be. And, Madam Speaker, when it comes to any conversation around free trade, the more that we can prioritize Canadian energy being that common sense displacement globally to that dictator and despot crude and gas, Madam Speaker, the better our world is for it. And unfortunately, we have a legacy under that Liberal Prime Minister and their coalition partners that has been truly devastating to world peace. Now, some may say, well, that's a little bit extreme. But, Madam Speaker, when you look at the facts, you have a country that is facing war that we're talking about now in terms of free trade, Ukraine. They are forced to purchase the very gas required to heat their homes, the very fuel that is required to fuel their vehicles, to fuel their things like tanks. Madam Speaker, they in some ways are forced to purchase it from none other than their aggressor. Madam Speaker, that is a shame, and it should be a moral imperative for every single one of us in this place to stand with Ukraine, and that includes standing with Canadian energy so that we can get it to market and ensure that we can displace that foreign dictator crude and that despot gas that has been funding Putin's war machine, because the best way to ensure that there's peace and security is making sure that there is energy security globally, and that contributes to food security, and food security contributes directly to peace and security, Madam Speaker. So when we talk to, thank you. So thank you to my colleagues, and I think that it's unfortunate that it's only the Conservatives that seem to see that reality here in our country. But, Madam Speaker, I can tell you that when it comes to making sure that Canada has free and fair trade agreements going forward, it will be under a new Conservative Prime Minister, that member from Carleton, that will make sure that it is prioritized globally, that Canada can succeed and prosper, and by doing so, the entire world will benefit. So, Madam Speaker, when it comes to Bill C-57, 27, there are so many unanswered questions. So I would challenge any member from any other political party in this place. Make sure that we take the time to get it right. Because if we get it right, we can help Canada's role in trade, Canada's role in providing energy, Canada's role in providing our expertise can be a part of the solution. Yet if we get it wrong, we end up making it more difficult for our own people. And we end up seeing that there's significant challenges that can be wrought about. So, Madam Speaker, I look forward to being able to answer some questions to this as we continue to support trade, as we continue to support the people of Ukraine, and make sure that we get any discussion that we take in this House. Let's make sure to get it right, because if we don't, the consequences certainly are dire.
Time for a brief question, and the other questions will be taken over the next time this is before the House. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, you want to get the Conservatives upset, just tell them the truth and the reality that when it comes to trade agreements, this government has signed off more trade agreements than Stephen Harper did. And that is a clear fact of history. Yet the member gets all excited about the importance of trade agreements, and I agree, we should be excited about, especially this one, because we're first time where it's a trade agreement that's being expanded upon during when another country is in war, and there's a great deal of appetite to see this legislation actually pass from a wide spectrum of stakeholders. My question to the member, he says he wants lots of time to be able to debate this.
I did say I needed a brief question. A brief answer from the member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I didn't hear a question there, so I'll take it as a comment, and I would simply emphasize and close my remarks with this. In 2014, a year after the process started in terms of that initial free trade agreement, Stephen Harper led the world in a show of strength when he stood face to face with a dictator and despot and told Vladimir Putin to, and I quote, "get out of Ukraine." Madam Speaker, that's the leadership that Conservatives have showed continually, and that is the leadership that we will continue to show when the member from Carleton is Prime Minister.
The honourable member will have 3 minutes and 50 seconds the next time that this matter is before the House to finish the questions and comments. Alors,